everybody, welcome to Zoo School Live. I'm Keeper Eric, and today we're in the Wildlife Lodge showing off probably some of our smallest residents, but also some of our newest residents. So I'll just move some of the little leaf litter aside so you can check them out. But may I introduce our two brand new spotted turtles, Domino and Yahtzee. So Domino, you can always tell because he has the single spot kind of right at the front there on his shell, and Yahtzee has the three right there, so that's kind of how we tell them apart. They are definitely not full grown yet, however. They are only 1 year and 6 months old, so they were born in captivity at another zoo on September 3rd, 2019, so they are still growing, and believe it or not, let me get my thumb in there so you can see how small they are. They were actually even smaller when they first arrived here, so they're growing actually fairly quick. I would almost say that they probably doubled in size, especially big old Domino over here, although Yahtzee's the more active one. So like I said, these guys are spotted turtles. So spotted turtles don't get very big. They very rarely could get about 5 inches lengthwise. So not saying that these guys will even get that big, however they have quite a lot of food that they get to eat, so who knows. But these guys are normally much smaller animals. So their habitat in the wild a lot of times are wetlands, kind of bogs, shallow water, which is why we don't have a lot of water in here for them, because they don't really actually like that deep of water. As you watch, as they're going around, they kind of more crawl across the bottom. They're not quite swimmers like we think of, like painted turtles, or if you guys tuned into Terrapins, where Mr. T was just swimming all over the place, showing off his superior swimming skills. Where these guys actually don't do very well in deeper water. These guys like to kind of more crawl around, and that kind of helps them out because a lot of the areas in wetlands that they live, it's not very deep water. Actually, it's a lot of mud and grass and all kinds of interesting smells. And in that area, they find all kinds of delicious things to eat. They can eat aquatic plants, however, their favorites are worms, mollusks, crustaceans, insects, amphibian eggs, and carrion. And without further ado, we're not sure if they're going to be too interested, especially because they are smaller. And they're a little suspicious why they're out of their exhibit right now. But they're definitely checking things out. But we got some little mealy worms for them, so we'll see if anybody is going to partake in some mealy worms. If not, well, it'll just be interesting for them. A little bit of enrichment that they can come check out. They're going to be maybe a little superstitious. Looks like Domino the fatty is thinking about it. No, he's like, I don't know. I don't eat for the camera. So these guys are actually very special turtles. These guys can be found here. Maybe Yahtzee? Maybe. They're wiggling. You do like wiggling. All right, buddy. But these guys are very special turtles. These guys are unfortunately endangered. They're one of actually only really 3 turtles that Pennsylvania really sees as endangered. Along with bog turtles are definitely one of the most well-known. They've been kind of on the endangered species list for the longest period of time. And then, of course, wood turtles. So a lot of people didn't want them on the endangered species list, unfortunately, because one of the main reasons why these guys are endangered is because of habitat destruction. So a lot of people, when these guys are in the endangered species list, and they've been doing it for years for bog turtles, what happens is whenever somebody buys a plot of land and they want to build on it, they have to get a survey done, especially if it's in an area where an endangered animal could be living. So, for example, for the bog turtles, people would have to go out, different reptile specialists hired by the state, and they have to survey the area and make sure that there is not any signs of endangered turtles or anybody else there. And if an endangered animal is found, they are not allowed to build there. They can check back in a couple of years, like if there's only one turtle and maybe he was just migrating through. But whenever they do identify an area where there are endangered animals like that, they no longer can build. So unfortunately for the companies, they get very upset about it because all of a sudden their brand new strip mall that they wanted to build there can no longer be there because of a tiny little turtle. But these guys are so important for the environment, and they live in such important areas as well. Marshes and bogs are water systems' natural filtration system. So for everyone that has Brita filters with the little fabrics or whatever that filters out your water at home, that's what a marsh and a bog and a wetland really is. All that dirt and grass acts like a big filtration for water before it moves on. So these guys are so important to keep that habitat nice and clean, not overrun by insects, even though wetlands have a lot of insects. And they just keep the waterways nice and clean. Another big issue is obviously pollution. There's a nice saying where we all live downstream. And what that means is even if you're nowhere near a water source or anything like that, if you spill oil or you know, are like, oh, I'm not anywhere near a creek. The closest creek is like 200 feet away, and you spill oil, let's say, in your driveway and you don't clean it up, well, the next rainstorm, that oil will make it eventually down to the ocean. The whole idea is no matter where we are in the world, if we spill something on land or in a creek, no matter what, it's going to go many different places and normally end up in the ocean. And of course, one of the last stops before they reach the ocean are bogs and wetlands and marshes and all that sort of stuff where a lot of times these guys live. So all that pollutants gunks up the filter system and unfortunately destroys the habitat. Also, the last big one is invasive species. For those of you that have red-eared sliders at home, those do not belong here. Please do not release them if they get too big. Please locate an SPCA or find someone else that can take care of them, because unfortunately, especially in Pennsylvania, a lot of people have had red-eared sliders and have released them into the habitat. So those guys are not found here, and they are actually out competing because they're much bigger turtles a lot of our other native turtle species. So whereas maybe the best place to sun themselves is on this log, or all the food is really found in this one area, the red-eared sliders, being much bigger, can bully the other ones out of the way, and then all of a sudden you got turtles that can't sun themselves and can't feed because this invasive species has come over and kind of taken over their home and outcompeted them. Because like I said, these guys don't get very much bigger than 5 inches. And turtles, thankfully, can live a very long time, but that also means that a lot of times they can be slow in reproduction. So these guys are a little bit slower. It takes a decent number of years, and they don't really lay as many eggs as you would think of as a sea turtle. But these guys can live 65 to 100 years. Obviously, it's a big estimate because we're still learning a lot about turtles because of how long they live. It's very tough for one person to track an entire turtle's life history when they might start the project when they're 45 or something, and this turtle can outlive them by at least 30, 40 years. So it takes multiple generations of scientists to do research on these guys. And then what we're doing in terms of conservation for these guys, obviously don't pollute, you know. If you do accidentally spill oil in your driveway, please clean it up. Don't throw litter. Recycle. Also, fresh water right now is a big commodity. So make sure that, like say, you take a shower, literally taking a 5-minute less shower can save gallons of fresh water that doesn't have to get pumped out of wetlands and waterways and all that, because one of the big issues we currently have is people living in areas that maybe might not naturally have a lot of water, but they want the green grasses, they have all the showers and all a big population in an area that normally doesn't have water. Well, they're pumping that water from somewhere else, and unfortunately a lot of time that means less water for the animals that normally have that. So wetlands are shrinking because there's not as much water going down, or dams are preventing the water from going down the river in the way that the environment is used to. And then, of course, the big one is surveys. If you guys do go hiking, and please don't actually go into a marsh or a wetland and stomp around on all the plants, because you never know what endangered thing you might be stomping on. But if you ever happen to be walking, especially across a road, unfortunately these guys are also pretty prone to getting hit by cars because they're trying to migrate from one side of the marsh to another, that if you ever happen to find one, you're snacking on something, report it. Report it, report it, report it, because the best way that we can understand where these guys are living, where we need to do conservation, where's the habitat we need to protect, or even for some people, like if it's a big migration time, like from spring to summer, to fall to winter, a lot of reptiles and amphibians go on migrations, going from where they were kind of hunkered down for the winter time out to where they're trying to breed and feed, and then back again. So a lot of times they know when to shut down roads, especially maybe at night or during a rainstorm, to keep these guys nice and safe. So that's kind of some big conservation stuff, and kind of a little bit about our little guys here, Domino and Yahtzee. But Laura, do we have any questions you've seen so far?
We did have a question from Peyton. She would like to know what kind of turtles these are, so we could go over that again, and then how old are they?
So these are our two spotted turtles. Scientists were very scientific with it, where we found a turtle with spots on it and we're like, hey, you know what's a good name for it? A spotted turtle. So their name is pretty easy to say for their common thing. And these guys are only about 1 year and 6 months old, so 1.5 years old. These guys were born September 3rd, 2019. And like I said earlier, there's been records of these guys being able to live to 65 to even 100 years. So they will definitely outlive both of us.
Yeah, and could we do a size comparison again, just with maybe your thumb?
Yeah, so
that worked out really nicely. That's how small they are.
And like I said, when these guys first came here just a couple months ago, they were probably even half that size. So these guys have almost doubled in size.
All right, and we had someone ask, where did they come from?
I forget the actual name of the zoo. But they came from a zoo up north. It was an AZA facility that were breeding them for conservation and being able to spread just kind of more information about them. So these guys are here so we can help educate the public and also keep a healthy captive population, since unfortunately it's always good to have a good captive population to keep alive for these guys until we are able to really stop a lot of the destruction of the habitat and the pollutants, to make sure that if anything happened to their population all of a sudden, that we still had animals to bring back to the wild.
All right, guys, so this is just your reminder. If you have any other questions, please pop those in the comments. We'll hang out for a few more minutes. Someone said that they really appreciated their names.
Oh, yes.
Domino and Yahtzee. And we got a few emojis of some good snacks when you were feeding them those mealworms. What else do these guys eat here at the zoo?
So these guys eat a wide range of stuff. We get some things like, for those that have saltwater fish tanks, those kind of frozen cubes of bloodworms, blackworms, brine shrimp, a lot of different like smaller insects that we can thaw out, and we just throw into their exhibit pool, and they kind of just spend the day going around digging up and just snacking on all the little shrimpy, wormy bits that are in there for them, and they definitely love it. They do like the wiggly mealworms a lot of times, but I also know that they are very appreciative of some good bloodworms.
Great. And Chris wanted to know, are they male or female? Do we know their gender?
So they are too small right now. We're waiting until they get a little bit bigger. All we can do kind of is guess. I know some people are like, oh, you could probe them, but we don't really like doing that for animals this small. So once they get bigger and their shells kind of develop and their body kind of shapes, we'll be able to tell a little bit easier on once they're sexually mature to tell if they're both males, both females, or maybe a male and a female.
Where can people find them? If you guys come out to the zoo and visit, where can people find them here?
So they are in that little reptile section in the Wildlife Lodge, right across from the African straw-colored fruit bats. So they're in kind of the bottom tank. It almost has two little windows to look in there, but it's all one exhibit. And they are very, very social little turtles, because normally one is always sitting in the windowsill.
Great. Is there any particular favorite part of caring for them that you want to share, Eric? Anything that's really fun to try to provide them?
Snacks.
Yeah.
Snacks are always the best, especially when they're in a pretty snacky mood, because they're moving their little feet around, they're normally fairly active, and definitely on snack day, they can be little piglets, that's for sure, and that's always cool to watch. Also, it's always just funny just seeing them in the windowsill whenever you're walking by. They're always interested in checking out everything up there.
Awesome. Well, just like every other episode, guys, if you are watching this later on, feel free to add your comments. We'll hop back on and try to answer anything we may have missed. And if you missed an episode and want to go back and rewatch, you can find them both on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel. And thank you guys for stopping by and visiting with our little spotted turtles and our friend keeper Eric. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and tune in on Thursday as well.
See you guys.